Penn State fans, blue-white breakdown. It's late in Penn State Bowling Green game week. PennLive's already covered a lot of Penn State bases, talking about West Virginia, talking about previewing the Penn State Bowling Green game. I can't think, Max Ralph, who is joining me, I can't think of a better time, though, considering what's happened earlier in the week, Max. I can't think of a better time to talk about Penn State recruiting than right now, because even though Penn State just crushed West Virginia, the score didn't do it justice, I don't think.
No.
Your work week never ends. I think it was the holiday. It was a holiday Monday, and
it was.
You got Penn State got some recruiting news. I think just to set you up, two of the maybe the highest rated players, verbal commitment wise, in the class. So why don't we just get to it? What'd you think of the two ads?
Yeah, so it depends on which service you prefer to look at, of course. When I'm writing on PennLive.com, I usually use the 24/7 composite just because it kind of takes everything into consideration, everybody's ranking. So if you go by that, Malachi Goodman, the offensive lineman who committed on Tuesday, is now Penn State's second highest rated recruit in the 2025 class. So that was a pretty serious win. There were some rumblings that he was going to be ready to decide in maybe early August or throughout the summer, and it just kept getting pushed back. There were some other big-time players in on him for his recruitment. You talk about Auburn, USC. He took official visits to Alabama. He was a really big-time recruit out of New Jersey, Paramus Catholic. And Penn State able to put it across the finish line, which is one of the more impressive recruiting jobs they've done in this class. I mean, I would put it up there with Max Granville because he was a tough one to win over some of the SEC powers now, with Oklahoma being in the SEC. But obviously he's now part of the 2024 class. But anyway, so Goodman was a huge win, and all along I'd kind of been personally targeting the offensive line of this class as a spot where they needed one more guy, and they needed it to be a guy because they've got some pieces on the offensive line, Owen Allison, Brady O'Hara, Michael Troutman. There are good names in that spot, but Goodman is a good prospect, not to play on words there, but it's just a really nice add to that group, and now I think you can feel good about the offensive line on the whole. As for the wide receiver, a Labor Day holiday special, Bob, as you alluded to, a flip from Virginia Tech, Matthew Outten out of IC Norcom in Virginia. He's an interesting one because he officially visited over the summer. Of course, Penn State's been on him for a while. I think there were good reviews out of his official visit back in June, but he committed to Virginia Tech. I think there's something to be said about what Virginia Tech is trying to do in Virginia these days. Of course, old Penn State friend Brent Pry, the head coach there now. He's really doing a good job in trying to kind of rekindle what Virginia Tech had back in the 2000s with some really big time talent. But with that said, sounds like Matthew Outten was kind of always leaning to Penn State, even though he committed to Virginia Tech for some amount of time. So Penn State able to push that one across the finish line as well this week. I got the chance to talk to his head coach, Anthony Hawkins, at IC Norcom last night. And boy, Hawkins just had an insane amount of good things to say about Matt. You always kind of have to take it with a grain of salt when you're talking to a high school coach, because of course they're gonna root for their guy. They're going to stand for their guy. But the things he said were legit. Outon has great size and speed. He's about 6'1 and a half, 210, and they've got him at a 4.4 40. Of course, that's hand timed, but still good size and speed for that guy. Size is another thing that I think Penn State needed from their receivers in this class. So I think you really got to be happy with those two guys. Of course, still flip season. There's going to be more out there before signing day, but Penn State with a top 15 class, and it's pretty deep in a lot of important spots.
I just wonder, this is probably being snarky. I don't think Brett Pry and Virginia Tech did itself any favors with that loss to Vandy.
No.
I just think if I'm a recruit and I'm committing to Virginia Tech, and more importantly, Brent Pry. I mean, I
Yeah.
like Coach Pry. I kind of want him to be there. And this is a year, I think, where a lot of people expect Virginia to take a positive jump. That
Mhm.
was not a great start, but we'll see. One other thing, Max, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Penn State flips at least one other player.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, not just because I'm wearing a Susquehanna Township visor, but I
Yeah.
mean, that's a guy that I think I wouldn't be surprised if Penn State was not done pursuing him. I think James Franklin and his staff do a great job of continuing to recruit players, even if they give a verbal. It's not they didn't sign, and if they really like the kid and they really think they still have a shot at him, it's not over until they get to the finish line. So I know it goes on a lot at Penn State. Sometimes they lose them, sometimes they win them. But Max, I wouldn't be surprised if there's at least one or two more flips for this class.
I'm with you. Lex is obviously a big one out of Susquehanna. Lex Cyrus, another wide receiver. But my only hesitation is that they do have 4 receivers in the class now. So it's starting to get tight just from a body's perspective. But then, of course, the big one that everybody is kind of hoping for if you're a Penn State fan and maybe expecting if you're covering the team or whatever. Is Zahir Mathis out of Imhotep. I don't know that I expect it necessarily, but he's an Ohio State commit right now. And he is absolutely I would venture to say he's the top name on their board right now. The top name left, defensive end. And mentioned Max Granville earlier. I do think Granville being reclassified now helps their case because Mathis would be among a fewer number of defensive ends in the 2025 class. I think that's part of his recruitment is that he wants to be able to come in and be a guy right away, which he's a crazy talented defender. So he's definitely the one guy I have an eye on. And one other name, Brandon Finney, cornerback / wide receiver out of that McDonough school where Penn State certainly has some great ties. He committed to Oregon, but people were thinking he was probably going to Penn State right up until he committed. So those are the 3, I think, Bob, that are kind of high on my list for flips. And I agree. I think they get at least one more of them.
Yeah. Max, Penn State's got a little Beaver Stadium runway in the month of September where they're not leaving State College, I think, until I think it's the USC game. I think
that's correct.
Right.
That's correct.
I know they got Bowling Green this week. Kent State, I think Brent Bielema. Dave Jones always used to get mad because I always would mispronounce his name. Brett Bielema's Illinois team comes in. I think UCLA comes in. I'm just really fascinating and interested to see maybe who stops by to visit the Penn State program in the month of September and early October. I'm sure we'll be on top of that, Max. But let's just pivot a little bit away from recruiting to some news and notes. With Penn State heading into the Bowling Green game. You were at practice on Wednesday night. They made some players available, I believe, afterward. And also James Franklin met with the media. You never really know what he's going to talk about or what he's going to be asked. That might be the better way to phrase it. But
sure.
there are some kind of nuggets of news. Maybe Penn State was very explosive on offense against Bowling Green. And it sounds like it doesn't sound like it's 100%. But it sounds like a pretty prominent skill player is inching toward making his Penn State 2024 debut.
Yeah, we're talking about tight end Khalil Dinkins here, the redshirt junior, who really is their number 2 tight end in terms of depth chart, at least from our perspective. Kind of Mr. Fourth Down last year with all the clutch catches he was making. Right. But he missed most of fall camp. With an undisclosed injury, and we did see him out on the practice field for the first time in a while last night, and he was going through drills, looked, at least for the 15 minutes that we could see, looked like he was a full participant. So that was encouraging for him and for Penn State fans, of course. And kind of the read I got from James Franklin talking about him is that he might play this weekend against Bowling Green just to kind of knock the rust off, as James said. but I don't think it'll be a lot because he's missed so much time. And I don't know, though. It's hard to say because James mentioned they don't want to have to play Luke Reynolds, the freshman. If they don't have to, they want to avoid it so that they can save him in those 4 games he gets before burning his red shirt and save him for maybe another time when they need him down the road. So if Khalil is good to go, he's going to play. I don't know how much just because of the time that he's missed, but in an ideal world, he'll play significantly. My read is I don't think that's going to happen this week.
Yeah, and I think, if you're Penn State and you're James Franklin and you think he, put a number on it, he's close, but he's not 100% healthy. They're playing a team they're favored by like 34 points against, and they have a bye week coming up. I mean, I would also throw out the fact that they did use Joey Schlaffer last week. I don't know if it was for anything more than that 2-point try, but I mean, I think they could probably between Andrew Rapplier, Tyler Warren. I mean, I think they could probably get away with another week without Khalil and still not play Luke. I think the other wild card, Max, and I think most Penn State fans will agree, the way that Andy Kotelnicki thinks, I think Andy's got some serious love for Venga Outon, and he's not afraid. He's not afraid to kind of move him around and showcase his wheels at almost 350 pounds. I fully expect we'll see Venga at multiple positions, maybe at some skill spots. I think they used him on a wham play at least once or twice in the game. This guy could probably play fullback. They could line him up outside. They did line him up outside. So I think they have a lot of options. And I think knowing James, if they're not positive about Khalil, why not wait? Because really, if you hold him out this week, you're going to hold him out, for another 2 weeks. But we'll see. We'll see on Khalil. Is there any update? He did play, but maybe as a wideout. Kaden Saunders was a guy that's part of, I think, their top 6 at a wideout. I think he did return some kicks, but James said, I think on Monday, that they were pretty sure that he wasn't going to return a lot of them because the West Virginia punter was a guy that produced a lot of fair catches.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Kaden did only have fair catches in the game.
Yeah.
I think really the only reason they had him out there on Saturday to begin with was just because he's the one who's done it the most, and they have the most trust in him in actually just catching punts. That's why he was out there, but he was very limited. He was also, like I said, in what we could see, a full participant last night. So that's positive. That's a positive sign. James said they were hopeful they could use him as a receiver this week. He might have looked a little bit slow in what we saw. I mean, just he's coming off an undisclosed injury, but he was a full participant for what we could see. He's definitely in that top 6. That's a guy who I think is maybe one of the receivers or players in general who I'd like to see take a step forward the most, just because of his position, his recruiting pedigree, all that good stuff. So he was out there. And just to add one more note on the tight end conversation, James did mention Joey Schlaffer as a guy who we'll probably see this weekend. So I agree with you. I think they could avoid playing Luke and Dink at the same time. I think that's probably what you're going to see. A guy like Jerry Cross, too, didn't make the travel roster last week, but was practicing. They're really deep at the position. So I think, Dinkins might play a little bit, and then they'll kind of do it by committee from there.
Yeah, when I think about Kaden Saunders, and you mentioned his he was a highly touted recruit in that
very much so
that he was in, and it's tempting to say, well, he's not getting any younger, but I think after watching what happened in the West Virginia game, where you had one 4th-year wide receiver dominate in Harrison Wallace, and you had another 4th-year wide receiver, Liam Clifford. He played a lot. He didn't have a catch, but I do believe James Franklin and some Penn State players, when they say the kid has really stepped up, he's a guy that I would definitely watch for if he's healthy. So I think that you can Penn State has shown that if the kids will be patient, Penn State's going to be patient with them if they believe in them. And it's a big program, but you can see late career breakouts at Penn State. It's kind of rare. And I do think that hopefully Kaden can stay healthy. He's not the biggest guy, and that's always going to be an issue, I think,
right,
keeping him healthy. But it would be nice to see kind of with him, what he looked like. His high school tape was very impressive. I know it's a different level, but I think we should give James and Kaden the benefit of the doubt after what we saw with some fourth-year wideouts in the offseason, and specifically with Harrison against West Virginia. Max, let's just pivot to the game itself here on the Blue-White Breakdown. Yep. Bowling Green, noon kick. I think it's the Big Ten Network. I believe former Lion Matt Millen's going to be doing the analysis for the game. I always like seeing him. I was a little surprised the line was 35. I know it's inflated based upon what Penn State did. Bowling Green's a little plucky. They beat up on Fordham, which was expected. They played big schools before and kind of hung in there. Anything's possible. I think it's their third ever trip to Beaver Stadium, third game in the series. Is there anything you're looking for on Saturday in terms of maybe surprises, or do you have a feel for how this game could play out?
I wouldn't say surprises necessarily. I mean, look, Bowling Green is one of the better small schools that Penn State could schedule. Last year, they gave Michigan a run for their money.
Yeah.
They have a really good running back. He went off last week. James Franklin added him and his weekly players to watch, of course. And more, like I said, not really a surprise, but something I just have my eye on is how this Penn State defensive line adapts. I mean, they're really strong in the middle. Devon J. Thomas, almost said Elise.
Okay.
Changed that name.
Yeah.
Hakeem Beamon. Alonzo Ford played a lot really well. So they're solid up the middle. Obviously, Denai Dennis Sutton is a really good player. Abdul Carter kind of took his lumps against West Virginia. So I'm curious how he steps up throughout the season, starting with this week in run defense specifically. Obviously, he's going to be able to get after the passer. Yeah. That's just what he's always done. But there were some noticeable times where, he was a little bit out of his keys on Saturday in West Virginia in the run game. So this team is probably going to try and run it at him, and I'm curious how he handles it. So I do think, though, that it's going to be pretty easy for the Lions on Saturday.
All right, before we get to our picks, one more thing I wanted to circle back to. I know that you and Johnny previewed the game and gave your picks. Let's put it this way. I just talked a couple minutes ago about, when James Franklin says something, usually he means it, and usually it's well intended. But I just want to ask you this: in a month from now, in mid-October, will we be talking about Smith Vilbert on a national level?
A national level is
the reason I say that is James did say that. James did say that on Monday. Gave me pause.
You're absolutely right. He did. And I was a little taken aback. We talked to Smith last night at practice, and he's a really nice kid.
Yeah.
He basically didn't play for 2 years. You can tell he's appreciative that he's back out there. He made a great play. He made maybe the play of the game on Saturday at West Virginia. That strip sack was a really impressive move. And he said he learned it from watching Aaron Donald and Max Crosby. So, he's got the right intentions there. But nationally, I don't see it, Bob. I mean, he's got two defensive ends in front of him who are legit guys, and so I think he's a great player. I think he's going to be very serviceable for Penn State this season. But nationally, I don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, I still remember he holds the Penn State bowl game record for sacks. He had 3 in that Arkansas loss, and he got him in the first half, and then I think he hadn't played much because I think it was Ebiketie had already announced he was going to leave for the next level, so he was thrust into a role where he was going to play more. I don't know if he ran out of gas, or I think Arkansas just ran the ball every play. And
I think that's what it was.
Murdered Penn State, turned a close game into a rout. But I vividly remember that game thinking, what in the world am I watching? Then I remember talking to him afterwards. He has added a lot of weight since that performance. He was actually skinny talking to him afterwards. He looks like a defensive end. James talked about his length, his basketball skills. I think they all will translate. I also think in a rotation where maybe he gets into the game against, for a pass rush when he's fresh and maybe the offensive line's not that fresh, it'll be in an advantageous position. But I don't know about a national level, but I agree with you. I think if he stays healthy, I think Penn State's going to feel very good about their top 4 defensive ends, and good on him. I admire kids, Max, that wait, that don't get discouraged. He's obviously added weight, and to wait really since the end of the 2021 season for this moment. I don't know how many players, I don't know how many players would be able to do that and hang in there. So good on him, Max. But let's just talk about the game flow on Saturday. I know you probably already gave your pick, but I'm a little curious. I'm always curious about the spread. I kind of have a pretty strong feeling about this. How did you see the game? And if you were, not that you would, if you were a betting man, Max, where would your money be? Where would your money be on Saturday?
I'm going to take the Lions to cover. It's close. So I didn't actually give my prediction in yesterday's podcast with Johnny.
Really?
We didn't quite have it yet. We just kind of previewed the game.
Sure.
So this is
into your head yet?
That's right. This is breaking news here, Bob.
Finalized. Okay.
I'm going 48-10 Penn State. The defense is crazy athletic. Yep. I do think Bowling Green is good enough to score at least once, especially if it's in the second half against some lower units. But I really liked what I saw from the Penn State offense on Saturday at West Virginia. I think that there's no doubt in my mind that the running game can really take off again this week behind Singleton and Allen. I just think Penn State controls the game flow. And of course, James Franklin has been known a time or two, if that spread is close, the second stringers are going down to score. So I'm going to take Penn State to cover. 48-10.
It was Sam Wallace who got the cover, because I think if it's 41-10, hopefully Bo will be out of the game, and
that's right.
It won't be Katron and it won't be Nick, but I wonder if Cam Wallace might be the guy that's scared. The Penn State.
I will say, Quentin Martin was working as the number 4 running back last night in practice.
I would love to see that too. I think I got the feeling coming out of spring, they were pretty much very close. And then I think there was a practice where James pretty much said if we had to play the next day, it would be Cam. So I think that they like Quentin, but he's got some catching up to do. It's a nice problem to have, but I agree. I obviously Penn State's going to win this game. I think they're going to have trouble covering, just because they played so well and put a lot into that game last week. Sometimes if you look, there's been some home games over the years where they've won, but they've kind of had to just kind of grind it out. I'm not saying they grind it out. I picked it 30-10 Penn State. I just think that's a really big number for a team that did play Michigan tough last year. It was actually a lot closer. If they hadn't turned the ball over twice in the third quarter, it would have been even closer. They did win at Georgia Tech. They have a lot of key pieces back. I'm real curious to see. Penn State's safeties are getting a lot of love, and they should be. And Kevin Winston was the Big Ten Player of the Week. It's a different kind of challenge, I think, for them this week. Bowling Green's got a really good tight end. They're going to try and get the ball to him. He's 6'4", 230, Harold Fannin. And I really want to see those two safeties, and even Zakee Wheatley, who's better in coverage. I'm sure Tom Allen is going to have a plan for that Bowling Green tight end. But those safeties, to me, are really fun to watch. And I just think that I think most of the college football world knew about Kevin Winston prior to the season. I think by the end of September, they're going to really know a lot more about Jalen Reed, because that guy he plays so fast and so violent.
He does,
and he's got ideal size. He's on a mission, and he knows that his future depends kind of on this season. So I think he's looking to just rough dudes up. So those safeties to me are must watch, all 3 of them in every game this season. I got it 30-10. You have it 48-10. I think you're looking for a little late cover, but maybe it'll be 48 and Bowling Green will score 10 in the final 5 minutes. But I think the game might be a little competitive for at least a half, and we'll see how things go. Hopefully Penn State gets to play Khalil Dinkins. Anything else, Max? Anything recruiting-wise or anything else you're looking for on Saturday?
I think we hit it. There's going to be guys in attendance. I'll try and get you a list on PennLive.com, as many as I can. But we hit it all.
Sounds good. All right, check back. Thanks for everyone who listened and watched. And we'll see how Penn State does in their home opener. They're gonna be spending the entire month of September in State College. So if you're a Penn State fan, you should be excited about that. Hopefully the rain holds off, but I did see the forecast, and we just don't want to repeat of what happened in Morgantown on Saturday, Max. So you live real close to the stadium. Just make sure if you're walking to the stadium, you wear your galoshes.
That's right. Yep. We'll be good.
Mm-hmm.